Boker Tov, we are continuing in the Mishnayot, Pesahim Perek Bet, Mishnah Hey. Elu devarim she'adam yotzeh b'hem yidei chovato b'Pesach. These are the types of grains that you can fulfill the mitzvah of matzah. From these 5 grains. B'chitim with wheat, b'seorim barley, b'kusmin spelt, u'b'shifon rye, u'b'shibolet shual oats. These are the 5. And not on the list is rice. There's a machloket if you're allowed to eat rice or not. And Ashkenazim and Moroccans, we don't eat rice on Pesach. Other Sephardim do. But you cannot fulfill the mitzvah of matzah made out of rice. Also, the poskim bring down that barley matzah is very difficult to make. It's very crumbly, and it could become chametz easier. So that's why you've probably I've never seen barley matzah. I've never seen rye matzah either, but you can find in the market, of course, wheat matzah, spelt matzah, which is a little easier on the stomach, and oat matzah, which is very expensive, but it is made because it is gluten-free. As a lot of people these days are gluten-free, so you can still fulfill the mitzvah, or celiac, etc., through oat matzah. Mishnah continues, V'yotzin ba demai u'maaser rishon shenitat trumato. So, now that you have the grain, what if it's demai? Demai is, you buy it from someone back in the day, or even now, you don't know if he took off terumah and maaser. It's questionable. I'm not sure if he took off terumah and maaser. You could still rely on that. With maaser rishon shenitlat trumato. Maaser rishon is 10% that you give, that goes to the Levi. So when you harvest, let's say you get 100 pounds, you give 2%, first 2% to a Kohen, that's terumah. Then you give 10% to the Levi. Now the Levi that gets 10% from here, he has to give 2% of what he got to the Kohen. So Maaser Rishon shenitla trumato. So this Levi that now has this Maaser, Yisrael is allowed to eat it. Terumah, only a Kohen can eat. But when a Levi receives Maaser, if he wants to share it with his friend, he could share it with his friend who's a Yisrael or who's even a Kohen. But you have to make sure that he takes off the terumah to the Kohen, and now it's free. So you could use that wheat for your matzah. Ubimaaser sheni ve'hekdesh shenifdu. Now let's say in years 1, 2, 4, and 5 out of the 7-year cycle, in addition to the 10%, in addition to the 2%, you give another 10% from Maaser Sheni, which is you have to go eat it in Jerusalem. That 10% you don't give to others. On years 3 and 6, you give 10% to Maaser Ani, to poor people, that 10%. But this is the second 10%, you have to eat it in Yerushalayim. Now, if you're going to schlep all your stuff to Yerushalayim, if you live far, it might get bad or whatever. What you could do is you sell it in your local town, whatever, and that money you take with you and you buy that, with that money in Yerushalayim, you buy food and eat it there. So this Maaser Sheni that I've now sold in Tzfat, wherever I live, and now I got the money. So if let's say I didn't let's say sell it to anybody else, I could put it into my own money. Let's say I know the value of this is $500. So I'm going to eat this and I'll take $500 cash and I'll go to Yerushalayim. You could do that as well. I've transferred the holiness from Maaser Sheni to this money. So that Maaser Sheni that was once holy, I can use that for matzah. So to Hekdesh, if let's say I say, I'm donating these 500 pounds of wheat to the Bet HaMikdash. And then I said, well, now I got to schlep it there. So you know what I'm going to do? 500 pounds is worth $500, so I'll take $500 of cash instead. You could flip the Kedusha there. So that money, that wheat that I once put for Hekdesh, I can use for my matzah. The Kohanim b'chala u'b'terumah. A Kohen who receives chala, nowadays we take off that little piece, we burn it, but that because the Kohanim are tameh, etc. But if they receive those little pieces of challah and terumah that they receive, they can bake matzah from that. Aval lo betevel. You're not allowed to use matzah from tevel, which is straight up from the land of Israel, without taking terumah, without taking maaser. It tells us the opposite. You cannot use from a Levi's maaser who did not take off the terumah. Or you can't take up for your maaser sheni or for your hekdesh that you did not do this and put it onto the money. Chalot toda Urkiken nazir. We spoke about this yesterday. The breads that were brought with a todah, the Thanksgiving offering. So some of those were chametz, some of those were matzah, some of those were kasher Pesach. Urkiken nazir. The nazir, when he finishes his nazir and he brings a korban, he also brings loaves, and these loaves were also kasher Pesach. So you'd say you want to use those for your matzah. So in that case, it's not allowed. So asan leatzmo en yotzim bahen. Those were made for the korban, not made for intention for Pesach. So you cannot yotzeh with that. Asan limkor bashuk yotzim bahen. Now let's say, which is 99% of the cases of matzahs nowadays. Maybe back in the day people would bake their own matzah. 99% you're going and buying matzah. So let's say people make matzot to sell in the bakeries, etc. Now you might say, well, maybe they didn't make the intention for, maybe their intention is for selling, and no, it's still the intention is for matzah that people could have for their seder. Therefore, even though you didn't make it yourself and you bought it, and the intention was for matzot for the seder, and therefore Pesach. Therefore, you do fulfill the mitzvah that way. Now the next Mishnah is the vegetables that you're allowed to use for maror. These are the vegetables that you fulfill your mitzvah for maror. B'chazeret, lettuce. Uba-ulshin, endives. Uba-tamcha. Uba-tamcha here is, it says it's a type of a piece from the date tree that's I think by the bark of the date tree, that material, if you eat that, it's very, very bitter. You do fulfill it that way. Ubachar chavina, which here is a thing called pepperkraut or horseradish. Uba maror, coriander. Maror in general is a bitter coriander. Now, I think the minhagim of Bnei Israel, as far as I know, there's only 3 items that we use. Correct me if I'm wrong, if anybody knows any other minhagim. There's lettuce, romaine lettuce, that's the general Sephardic minhag, endives, and horseradish. Ashkenazim use horseradish. I don't know of any other vegetables that we have as a misorah, as a tradition that we use for maror. But please enlighten me if you know. Now, yotzin bahen ben lachin ben yeveshin. You fulfill the mitzvah if it's fresh, or even if it's dry. Let's say you had dried endives and you ate it that way, or dry horseradish, you fulfill it that way. Avalo kivushin, you cannot use pickled ones. Velo shlukin, and not cooked ones to a point where it's like a soup. Velo mevushalim, or cooked ones even where I see the lettuce, but it's just cooked, boiled or whatever. It has to be fresh or dried, but no other cooking involved. Umitztarfin kazai. You can put it all together. Let's say I have one piece of endive and one piece of lettuce, romaine lettuce. Now I put it together and I have my kazai. That's okay. You're allowed to mix them together. It doesn't have to be specifically from one thing. You also fulfill the mitzvah with the stalk of that thing. So the stalk of the lettuce, even if it's not the actual leaves, but the middle piece, you fulfill the mitzvah even with that. And here as well, you can use it from demai, you can use it from maaser rishon that the tumah was taken off of, and you can use it from maaser sheni and hekdesh that was put onto the cash, so you can use it from those items. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen v'amen. Rabbi Chananya ben Akashia omer, Ratzak kadosh baruch hu, לזכות את ישראל לפיכך באדם תורה נוסף שנאמר אדוני חפץ למען צדקו יגדיל תורה וידיר